Hi, I'm Monica Packer, and you're listening to About Progress, where we are about progress made practical. I definitely haven't always been this way, but I took some time during the Thanksgiving holiday to start to plan out my 2025. What goals I want to work on, the systems I wish to implement in our home, the fun I hope to encourage as a family. But I'll be honest, doing so made me feel very overwhelmed. And I was frustrated by that because planning ahead is something I do to help me feel supported, not overwhelmed. And I wondered why overwhelm was what I was feeling instead. But then I realized I had made a mistake, being the planning newbie that I am. Before I look forward, I must look back. We are so driven to go, 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 and do that we often skip what we did. In our haste to improve, we lose the compass that the past best provides, even our most recent past. This felt especially true for me with a particular child years ago who was struggling in a very debilitating way, and not just for them, but for the whole family. We were only looking ahead, working so very hard to help them heal and to improve. But when we looked ahead, it felt both overwhelming and impossible because we could only see how very far we had to go. And this child felt it too. They told me over and over that nothing is working. But then we had this magical moment of taking a pause and looking back, even just the past 6 months. And we could see that there was progress happening. It was just so slow and so incremental that it was hard to see it and feel it in the moment. And as we looked back, we were better able to inform what mattered moving forward, what was working, what wasn't, and what small changes we could make to continue the progress we needed in the future. As we're nearing the end of 2024 and starting the new year, I know it is tempting to jump right into what goals or resolutions you want to make. Or maybe you're like my past self, and you don't have the capacity or even the desire to do either of those. Wherever you fall on that spectrum, today I want to help you have a better 2025 by first reflecting on 2024. And as is usual around here, what is to follow is sure to be both the deep and practical solution you need to not just focus on what you want to do, but on what you did. That's coming up after a quick break for our sponsors. Before I begin, a little hug and kick in the pants for you. First, the hug. You do not have to plan out your 2025. You heard me. You don't need to formalize all your goals and have them broken down into quarterly, then monthly, then weekly plans in order to progress in good and valuable ways this coming year. One of the ways that we hurt ourselves is waiting for the right time, waiting to be the stereotypical type A personality, waiting to do things perfectly. And with that, when we're thinking about the new year, we wait for the personality, the energy, the time to really reflect and make plans for a new year. Instead, I want you to consider to start small. The truth is that I didn't even make goals until well after I had made my do something list for a few years. I did that because at that point in my recovery from longstanding perfectionistic tendencies, I realized that making goals was not where I was at. Instead, I needed to uncover and discover who I was. I needed a way to challenge my perfectionistic tendencies. I needed a way to rediscover me. And as I did so, one of the trickle-down effects for me was gradually getting back into goal planning and then later day planning and all the other kind of planning habits. And once I did that, I did my goal planning for the year for about 6 years. But then I dropped the habit again. In 2023, I had my baby and I barely touched my goal planner that year. And the same thing happened in 2024. I planned out my goals in March of the year, better late than never. And then I only touched it again maybe 3 or 4 more times throughout the entire year. I say that all for you because right now is the right time for me to pick up my formal goal planning process. And I do so with Cultivate What Matters, a great planner if you're looking for one. And also my new daily planner for this year is the Hustle Sanely planner. It's a peacefully productive planner if you're looking for one. But anyways, it's time for me to pick up goal planning in ways that feel like I'm honoring myself, that I'm getting the support I need from a formal goal making process, but in ways that still match my season. So I want to encourage you right out the gate that you can honor where you're at. You can honor your time and your season and also your personality. And I want you to know that so that you don't dismiss this episode just because it's not your time to be a goal getter this coming year or because it's never worked for you in the past. Regardless, this episode is going to help you. Why? Well, that's where the kick in the pants comes in. Regardless of where you're at, you do deserve to have a little direction to your coming year. And this comes best by first reflecting back on your year. Now that's coming up, and using that information to create a compass for what is to come. And if that compass can only provide your word for the year, or even one goal that you want to prioritize, yeah, you can just do one goal for a whole year, then I would consider yourself to be very, very successful. So my kick in the pants for you is to still challenge yourself to reflect back no matter what your goal planning plans are for the year. And I hope what you hear today can inspire both this hug and kick in the pants for you in ways that feel both motivating and doable. As a quick heads up, the format for the reflection I will share is something you can follow too. I've created a free resource for you to do so. It's a printable called the Did Something Guide, and it will help guide your reflection and give you that compass for the future. You can access that printable at aboutprogress.com/did something. And that's DID for did something. What I'm going to do is share an overview of what that Did Something Guide contains. And after the break, I'll share my own personal examples of how I filled it out myself. And the goal here again is to help you have a compass. That's the whole point. The way the guide begins is to encourage you to follow the win-win formula. The win-win formula is an acronym. It's made up of two parts. The first win is actually just the letters WN. The second half of the formula is another win, but it's spelled WIN. And let me break down what both of those acronym halves spell out to. The first half, your win, is what well, what did not. The second half is what's important now. When you follow the win-win formula, you are doing a mini reflection and a mini forecast of what you want in the future. And it's so simple that you can do it in just a few minutes. And you always fill it out with just what comes to mind right away. It doesn't require a lot of time or deep reflection. So what went well this year? What did not? And what's important now? The win-win formula is your baseline. That means the smallest and simplest way that you can reflect and plan for your 2025. If filling out the win-win formula is all you can do, then I would count yourself as done. With that being your baseline, there is more of an ideal you can move towards in your reflection so you can create a very formalized did something list. Now, this is a play on something that we've done in this community for years, the do something list. I brought that up a little bit earlier, and I'm going to circle back to it a bit later too. But the did something list is a way for you to account what you did this year. Here's what I recommend to help you make your did something list. Some questions that you should answer. What did I do this year? When you answer this, I want you to think of the things you accomplished. These are both literal and figurative, meaning you can share something like, I organized the kitchen pantry, or something that is non-literal like, I did my best to keep my chin up during a very dark time. So what did you do in 2024? The next question I want you to consider as you create your did something list is, what habits did I gain? Perfection is not required for you to be able to fill that out. Simply think of what habits you worked on. And if you didn't get to the ideal yet, that's okay. Share what you worked on there. The next question is, what experiences did I have? This is where you can think about adventures you knew, places you went for dinner, or movies you went to, but you can also think about experiences that you had that may be a lot quieter, but also very important, like a conversation that you had that was really important, or a meal that you made that was really special. What experiences did you have? The next question is, what did I learn? I find that whatever comes top of mind for this is very informative of how I grew in ways that I may not have been accounting for when I go through the other questions. Like what I did and what habits I gained and the experiences I had may not fully illustrate the growth I've experienced until I get to this question of what I learned. And oftentimes what you learned is informed by the things you did, but sometimes what you learned is actually representative of what you did. So maybe you had a year where you didn't have a lot of, hey, here's the experiences I had, or here's the ways that I grew, here's the habits I gained, here's what I did. But you do have I learned these things. And the learning is the doing for me. So that section is honestly the most important to me. And the final question to consider is, how did I feel for most of the year? How you felt is really important. The general feelings that rose to the top for you is really illuminating for the type of year you had, and it also can help inform how you want to feel the next year. So answering those questions is going to help you create your did something list. Again, the questions are, what did I do? What habits did I gain? What experiences did I have? What did I learn? And how did I feel most of the year? Now, after you do that, I have more questions for you to reflect on that will act as your compass for 2025. And to be honest, both parts of this were lacking for me as I initially made my goals for 2025. Instead, it made it so I kind of got sucked up into some shoulds out there. I got sucked into some inadequacy I was feeling and stress. To create both a did something list and a compass for 2025 helped me get a lot more clarity as well as peace in how I did so. So to create your compass for 2025, here's some questions I want you to answer. The first is, how do I want to feel? That was the last question I asked you about your 2024, but it's the first question for 2025 because the feelings are so important. How do you want to feel for 2025? The next question is, what do I want more of? Again, your answers here can be literal or figurative. I'll share more of my own examples in just a moment. The next question is, what do I want less of? Again, both literal or figurative answers are totally okay. The next question is, what habits do I want to gain? And the next question is, what experiences do I hope to have? Consider this almost your brainstorming session. And as you do that, you're going to get more of that compass, meaning a sense of direction on what really matters in 2025. And from here, you can do two things, and you can do both of them or just one of them. The first thing you can do is create a word of the year, and I'm going to guide you through that. And the second thing you can do in addition to that is to create your goals for 2025. And this is where I would just say, you know what you need. From here, you'll be able to better understand what categories in your life you need to work on and formalize some goals. Or if not, at least you'll have the word of the year that kind of encapsulates everything that you did in this whole guide. With the word of the year, I like to, after I've reflected on the past and kind of brainstormed for the future and cast my vision, what I want in the future, I then write down a whole lot of words that in one word encapsulate those things. And I have to just write down a ton of words first because I easily can get stuck on this kind of step because deciding the word of the year feels really important. And it also can be a little stressful when you don't feel like you're a wordsmith. Like, I don't feel that way. So just be like me and write down a whole bunch of words and even take out the thesaurus, which you can do on a Word document online. You can highlight a word and look up other words that go with it, or you can type in Google, what's another word for this, and get a lot of words. And then from there, just choose one. Just choose one. It doesn't have to be the only word that you have for the year. You can always change it later. And with that sentiment in mind, as you fill out your own Did Something guide and create your Did Something list and create your compass for 2025, I really want to encourage you to not overthink your answers. Do not be a perfectionist. Just get some ideas down. In fact, the way I helped myself move through this is I set a timer. And that's because, if I'm going to be really honest with you, I do not enjoy reflecting. The hardest part about making goals for me is the reflection piece. I find this is true with journaling too. That's why I don't really love journaling, because I don't like to think about it all. It's just a lot. It's just a lot. So to help me do this anyway, and hopefully to help you too, I had to lower my own expectations of myself to know that I wasn't there to write complete sentences. I wasn't there to make what I wrote readable or beautiful or even deep. I was going to go with my top of mind, whatever came up right away. And to help with that, I set a timer. I gave myself 10 minutes to go through the Did Something guide really quickly. And then after that, I could tighten some things up or kind of go into a category that needed a bit more time or reflection. But it really helped me get the ball rolling and to do it in ways that were faster and also surprisingly deeper than if I had started with this idea that I had to make something eloquent and deep the whole way through. After the break, I'm going to share my answers to the Did Something guide with hopes that it helps you do the same. Again, that's coming up after a quick break for our sponsors. So if you remember, the first half of the Did Something guide is to form your Did Something list. And the baseline way to do that was to follow the win-win formula. So let's do that for my 2024. What went well? Right away, I thought, okay, what went well? My sleep got a lot better this year. And that had to do with my toddler finally sleeping through the night, of course, but also being able to better prioritize going to bed earlier and wake up earlier. Another thing that went well is that I was able to get out of my house a whole lot, and that felt so nice. That was one of the top items on my Do Something list, was to get out and get cultured, and that went so well. And because of that, so many memories were made with my kids, with my husband, as a whole family, and with myself and some other friends too. Getting out was wonderful. That really went well. Another thing that went well was a more routine date night with Brad. I wouldn't say we're perfect at it. We still average like 1 to 2, maybe 3 times a month at best, but it's better than it was before. Another thing that went well is I felt like I mindfully took better care of my health without becoming obsessive. I had some goals with the way I wanted to more mindfully eat and also to get stronger physically. And I felt like I very gently made progress in that area. Another thing that went well is I saved a lot more money on groceries. And that all came at the advice of a podcast guest we had on, Rachel Coons, back in the spring. And I love that episode so much and what I learned from her, and I put it into practice, and I've been saving hundreds of dollars a month, sometimes up to $500. Crazy, right? I became an affiliate with her program too. So watch for me sharing more about that on Instagram if you're interested, because her program is helping me get more consistent with those savings too. Another thing that sort of went well is I did okay this past fall with prioritizing my work without having any childcare for my toddler. And I say that went okay-ish just because it was okay-ish. It was more stressful and difficult, and you're going to hear about that too in a moment. Another thing that went well is I had great coaching clients. This fall semester, I was able to open up more spots than I've been able to in years, thanks to having that baby and a little toddler. And it felt so good to sell out those spots really quickly, but also the clients I had, I just felt like each one, we were the right fit for each other. And that always feels so, so good. Another thing that went well, and I would say the final thing on my list that came top of mind, was that I made decent progress on my Do Something list. I've never completed a Do Something list, so that's not even the goal, but I was proud of what I was able to do on my Do Something list and felt like I reaped the benefits of having it and prioritizing it. What did not go well? Well, if you've listened to any episodes this year, especially the messy middle, then you know I have been going through some major downs. I wouldn't say ups and downs. I would say a lot of downs with my business. I have felt very stretched thin thanks to the limited time that I've had to prioritize my work. And also felt very stressed about what was going to happen with my business. Now, if you wanted to know that, you could listen to the State of the Podcast address that I released in November that shares where we're at with the podcast and whether or not we're going to keep going, because this was a make it or break it year for my work. And I mean, spoiler alert, we are moving forward, but carefully so. What also did not go well is that it just feels like there is no margin in my life. There's no time outside of my responsibilities, both with work and at home. I don't feel like I really was able to prioritize much rest or fun, to have my own hobbies. I felt pretty maxed out that way, and that is something I would like to change. And that goes to the next part of the acronym. So I did the WIN for WN, what went well, what did not. The next half is what's important now. I know that I need to better prioritize rest and hobbies and fun. I need more boundaries around my time, both with my work responsibilities and home responsibilities. But to do that, I know that I need more help. I feel like my family is doing everything they can there too. So it's not like my family is slacking. It's that we may need more outside help. Like, I think I need to revisit not having childcare and maybe hiring a babysitter for 6 to 9 hours a week again, or perhaps thinking about a house cleaner, or maybe both. To be frank, I don't know if I can afford either or both. So that's something I know I need to prioritize looking into and maybe figuring out if we could prioritize. And maybe those grocery savings could help out with that. Another thing that I know is important now is relationships. And I was laughing as I wrote that down because I only just remembered in writing that down that people was my word for 2024. Oops. In all the hullabaloo of the year, I basically forgot that relationships matter. Now, I feel like with my husband, that has been so, so important and so good this year. And, not arguably, I would say, the most important relationship I have. So that one's going well, thankfully. But with my friends and my family and having relationships with my kids' school and their teachers and other parents there, it needs a lot of work. So what's important now is I need to better prioritize the relationships in my life. And also what's important now, it's helping me remind myself that I really need to make sure my goals are something I can see often. Like, I need to hang it up where I see it often. Now, I did that, but I put things over it. Like, I was hanging up in my closet and I hung some hats up and a purse and it blocked it. So I need to make sure I move where my goals are next year. So that way I don't forget my word of the year and I don't forget what's important now. So that's my baseline. And if that's all I was able to do for 2025, I really feel like that gave me the reflection I need to either make better goals or to make a word of the year, and or both of those things maybe, but also to make a word of the year, to make goals for the year, either of those things or both of those things, or to not. And that just would be helpful enough as it is. Now, because I am the creator of this Did Something guide and this podcast, I did move forward and filled out the rest of the Did Something list section and the compass section. So I'm going to share those for you as well. This is where I answer those questions. So what did I do this year? What I did. So what I did this year is a lot of fun things. And actually, instead of thinking about major accomplishments, I went to my Do Something list, which was fun. If you had major Do Something lists, go and look back at that. And even if you just did one thing on your list, that's something you did. So write it down. So for me, I read 80 plus books. I did some house projects like replacing the carpet runner in my stairway, painting my kids' room, and working on other interior design projects. I read over 10 physical books, which was less than I wanted, but I did it. I went on a few double dates with Brad, like 2 or 3. I think I had wanted to do 5, and that was good. I did 10-ish hikes over the spring and summer and fall. I gardened and I canned, even when I didn't feel like it. I made some new sourdough recipes. I went on a lot of family adventures, mostly around our home. Although we did go to Logan once, we also went to California and we did a great trip as a family to Disneyland and other places around LA, which was such a blast. And I'm so glad we went on that trip. I went to McCall with my family as well. I got out and got cultured. I saw things like Hamilton and other local plays and the symphony, and I have more to share on that in a moment. So that's a lot from my Do Something list, but what else I did is I kept podcasting, I kept working, even though I felt very overwhelmed and worried and discouraged about it all. I coached really well. I prioritized my marriage. I made sure that I had good self care habits, which I'll get to in a moment, the best I could. And I'm proud of those things. And those are things I did. And as I wrote those down, it did feel like, oh, I did more than I thought, because for a lot of this year, a lot of what I did felt like a wash. So what I did is great. Oh, one other thing I think I would add to what I did is I persevered through more challenges with my kids, with my toddler having childhood apraxia, not speaking, and us learning sign language and trying to help him through that, and my other child needing speech therapy and other children needing other special needs being addressed in new ways. I persisted for my kids, and I was what they needed me to be for those big needs. Now, there are things I definitely want to improve on as a mom, and I'm thinking about that too. What habits did I gain in 2024? I got into a better nighttime routine and earlier in the night, and as part of that, a better morning routine and earlier in the morning too. And those two habits, more like routines, are things I'm really proud of. I read more with my 6-year-old, and I want to read even more. So this is still like not perfect, but I read more with my 6-year-old than I did the year prior, and that feels good. I got back into some habits that were on the back burner, like meal planning and day planning. And I'm so glad for that, because both are helping me in ways that were really significant that I didn't even realize how much I needed. I also go back into journaling for myself. And I'm still at my baseline habit of just writing one line a day, and it's working for me. It's enough. What experiences did I have in 2024? Lots of baseball, because my oldest son was on a competition league, and that was new for us, being on any kind of comp sports. I guess we could put this with something we did as well. As a family, we prioritized a lot of sports, especially baseball, for that child. But it was fun. It was fun to support him, and we got to go to Logan for one of the tournaments and more locally for others. So that was a good experience to share with him. We went to Disneyland, like I said. We went to Hamilton, like I said. And just all of the get out and get cultured experiences are things that I really loved and prioritized, as well as the local adventures we had. Our Get Out Pass was so big for the experiences we had. I really felt like we got to experience where we live in ways that we hadn't before, thanks to that pass. And I'm really glad we had it. And by the way, I think I'm just going to link to all the things I mentioned, from the planners to the Get Out Pass and episodes and Rachel Kuhn's membership, if you're interested. So what I learned this year, and this is not really beautifully written, it's just what came top of mind. What I learned was to not quit the moment I feel like it. Because there's going to be a lot of moments where I just feel like I'm done and I want to be done, and it's just easier to quit. And I'm glad I didn't in the moment. I'm glad I've at least given myself time and space to make bigger decisions. And while I'm still moving forward with those decisions in terms of keeping with the podcast, I'm still open to stopping. But stopping is a lot different than quitting, and I'm glad I didn't quit when I felt like it. What else I learned is to keep the big picture in mind. I learned to stop working on the weekends. I learned I need more help, and that it's okay if I can't do everything. I learned that my marriage and my relationship with my kids really are everything. And I also learned I want to live my actual life. I don't want to always feel like all I'm doing is one to-do after the next. I want to live, and that for me means more downtime. I learned that downtime really matters. Doing nothing really matters. Having hobbies and fun and sitting on the couch, those things really matter to me in ways that they maybe didn't in the past. And I want to prioritize that better. How I felt for most of 2024. For most of the year, I felt really stressed. I felt overwhelmed. I felt worried. And I felt bitter. Are you surprised to hear all those answers from me? I mean, that's the truth. I felt all of those feelings. But when I took a deep breath, just like you heard me do right now, I also felt other good things. Mostly, I felt stable. I felt stable with my marriage and my kids. And that's why I learned my relationship with them matters the most. Because even though I felt stressed and overwhelmed and worried and even bitter, I felt stable overall because of those relationships. So that, my friends, is my did something list. And this helped me get a lot of clarity on what really matters and what I really want in the 2025 year. So because of that, I can now share the second half of the Did Something Guide and share my answers to the questions that will now act as my compass for this coming year. How do I want to feel in 2025? I want to feel more confident in myself and my work. I want to feel more connected to myself and to others, and I want to feel more peace. Those are the answers that rose right up to the top. What do I want more of? I want more movies. I really want to go to the movies this year. I want to prioritize that big time. I want more reading. I want more hobbies, or hobbies to begin with. I want more hiking. I want more sisters. Those are relationships that I really want to prioritize better. I want more dates with Brad. I'm glad we went on the ones we did. I want to make sure we're doing it more like weekly. I want more family fun. And I also want more downtime personally. I need a lot more of that. What I want less of, I want less stress. I want less scrolling on my phone. And that's something I found myself doing because my work is on Instagram too. I get on there and I actually am getting to check the numbers and I'm checking the comments, but I'm just doing it to check, not to actually engage or to do something with it. So that can lead to scrolling as well. So I want less of that. And I want less self-doubt. I really want a lot less self-doubt. What habits I need to gain? I want to improve on the habits I've been working on. I want to have an even earlier to bed and earlier to rise routine in place because of some things I plan to work on. What other habits I need to gain include goal planning for both my personal life and my work. I want to make sure I'm actually using my planners for goals in particular, because day planning really came along. I think I'm doing great with day planning, but goal planning is different for me. Again, I use Cultivate What Matters for my goal planning. And that's something I want to make sure I'm in the better habit of doing routinely, meaning checking in on my goals a couple times a week, but also reflecting on how the past month went and better forecasting how the next month needs to go for goals. I need to work on better prioritizing piano practice for my 6-year-old. We've come along, but there's room to grow. And I need to also figure out what habits will help me create more time for hobbies and rest and fun, and some systems for my job responsibilities that can help make that time more possible too. Also, maybe I just need to hire some things out, but we're just trying to get to the point where I'm even paying myself. So what experiences I hope to have this coming year? I already know 2 of them. We're going to go to Les Mis and I'm going to go to Wicked with a couple of the kids. I really want to go to St. George this year. We never went in 2024. I hope to have the experience of having more family games and family movie night. It would be really fun to go on a trip with Brad. And other experiences I hope to have, I'll connect with the Do Something list I am planning on making soon. The Do Something list is separate, and I'm going to share more about that in a moment. Now, with all of that reflection in place, I feel like I have a better sense of the direction I need to head in 2025, beginning with my word of the year. Now, I'll spare you from the brainstorm that I did for my word of the year, but I will tell you the word. And again, I'm not a wordsmith, so I always struggle with this. I always feel like I get a little stuck on the word of the year, but I did it anyway, and I did it messy. And I wrote down a bunch of words, and then I narrowed down to one that I'm just going to start with. It doesn't have to be the perfect word, but this is the word I'm going to start with. And once I chose it, I have to tell you, I did feel like a little exhale, like this is it. That's the word. And my word for 2025 is calm. And for me, that's more speaking to an inner calm in my life, of the desire to feel less tumult inside of me, to have more peace and confidence inside, but also the calm on the outside, meaning to have more of that downtime and also to feel more calm with some of my kids. Some of my kids and I are starting to have more issues as they're getting older and getting more independent, which is good, but they're also pushing back in some ways that I think are totally age appropriate, and I want to be more calm about that. So that encapsulates a lot of things for me. Calm, that's my word for 2025. Okay, so I shared now my whole guide and how I filled it out, and that created my own did something list, what I did and what I hope to do. And again, you can get your own did something guide by getting the free printable I have for you at aboutprogress.com/did something, and that is linked for you in the show notes. Now, I kept hinting at this, the do something list. The do something list, if you're new here, is a practical push to prioritize everyday fulfillment in your life. It is separate from goals, it's separate from resolutions. It is not about completion, it's all about exploration. The do something list helps you uncover and discover who you are, all outside of goals and resolutions. My first do something list changed my life, starting with helping me rediscover me, and then all the bonus changes that gradually came about, from goal planning to creating happy habits to growing in my personal life and business in ways that I never had on my do something list. And I still don't because it's separate from goals and resolutions, but creating and pursuing your own do something list has that trickle down effect of improving other areas of your life. I say that all because I still need to make my do something list for 2025, and I would love to do that with you. Each year, I host my only free workshop of the year. I may host like other masterclasses that are webinars for programs, but that's all in the back burner right now. But I do host workshops, and my only free workshop this year will be the Do Something List workshop. And I've officially set it for Wednesday, January 15th at noon Mountain Time. There will be a replay included, and you can sign up to attend that workshop with me and to leave with your do something list in hand for 2025, or about as much as close to completed as you can, by going to aboutprogress.com/DSL 2025. I know I shared a whole bunch of resources this time, so just know if I mentioned it, it's in the show notes. The most important things for you are the Did Something guide at aboutprogress.com/did something, and the upcoming Do Something list workshop at aboutprogress.com/DSL 2025. I hope this episode gave you the hug and kick in the pants you need to grow. There are no progress pointers for this episode, there's just the Did Something guide, and I really hope that you will check it out, print it off, and do it, and you can make me your accountability buddy and share with me how it helps you reflect on your 2024 so you better guide your 2025. This show is listener supported. Members of the Supporters Club get access to 3 levels of exclusive benefits, from more content to more time with me, both online and in person. My favorite benefit is my private, premium, and always ad-free podcast called More Personal, where I lean into the personal side of personal development. If you like About Progress, you will love this premium show, especially because I get to let my hair loose a bit more, and it's honestly a lot of fun. You can check out all 3 levels of support and their benefits at aboutprogress.com/support. You can always support the show for free. Make sure you've subscribed and are following the show, leave a review, text it to a friend. Any of those simple things are vital to helping make sure About Progress continues. Thank you so much for listening. Now go and do something with what you learned today.